My dear brothers and sisters, today I come back with a new story that happened in Morocco to a young man who chose to share it with us to both benefit and warn any person who let its curiosity take over him. So let's start. Bismillah. My name is Kareem. I was a very practicing young man. I used to go to the masjid a lot, especially for Salah, and I had a stable life and a good job. I lived in the house of my parents and I enjoyed life, alhamdulillah. I loved to learn my deen and get knowledge, and whenever I went to pray for in the masjid, I always met a man that has become my friend. He was practicing like me. We used to sit in the masjid and talk for a long time after Salah, and we got closer and started to hang out together until one day he started to talk about the unseen world. He seemed to be so passionate about it and how Allah created other creatures that live among us, and the more he talked about it, the more I got passionate too, because I never truthfully paid much attention to that before, but this man made me attracted to that world. One day after we prayed for, the man said, "Would you want to discover that world?" I replied, "No, the jinns only harm us and it's shirk." But the man replied, "No, I'm not talking about the shayateen or kafir jinns, I'm talking about the Muslim jinns. Wouldn't you want to be in contact with a Muslim jinn? Did you know that they can teach you knowledge of deen and even serve you because they're Muslims like you, so they can't hurt you? There's no harm. What do you think?" I remained silent and started to consider it. This man has been my friend and he's a practicing Muslim, so he can't lead me in falsehood. Maybe there's a halal way to have a jinn serve you. Since there's Muslim jinns, he won't ask me to commit shirk or the disgusting things I heard the magicians do. Maybe I will get a better life without having to leave Islam or stop Salah. Maybe I can even be powerful like the Muslim kings or be the first human with great knowledge. And the man saw the passion in my eyes, so he said, "Meet me tomorrow here and I'll bring you the book that will lead you to the Muslim jinns." I couldn't sleep that night. I was so excited. I never thought that there was a way to be in contact with a Muslim jinn without having to be a mushrik or give up on my Salah and my religion. I was so curious about the other creatures Allah created, and the next day the man came at the masjid and we prayed for together. Then he gave me an old book. He said, "That's the book where you will find how to call on the Muslim jinns and make them serve you. You will get so much knowledge." And we talked a bit, then he left. I went to my workplace, but my mind was with the book, and once I got home I couldn't wait any longer, so I took it in my hands and opened it. It looked so old and dusty, and what confused me was the verses of the Quran inside it and the strange language, but I knew it was the Syrianic, the jinn language. It had so many weird-looking signs, and what confused me more was the names of the jinn kings and queens put with the verses of the Quran. Astaghfirullah, and I started reading and turning the pages, and finally I found the pages of the Muslim jinns, and there was a particular powerful Muslim jinn king that I decided to be in contact with, so I saved the page of the incantation, and I needed to fast a whole week and have iftar only on bread and dates, so I did. Once the week was over, I decided to do the summoning that night. The room of my parents and my room was upstairs, so they can't hear anything. I decided to do it downstairs in the living room of our villa, and I needed certain candles and bukhor. I set up everything and started to read the incantation without understanding what I'm reading. A few minutes later, I felt a breathing on my neck and I froze from fear. I heard right after the door of my room being closed in an angry way, and then the light of the candles died, and I remained in the dark. I was scared, but I didn't know if it worked or not, and suddenly I felt a hand on my shoulder. I was too afraid to turn, and I heard a whisper in my ear, "I shall obey you. Ask what you want." I couldn't believe my ears. The adrenaline in my body was too high. I felt like I was a king. When I finally turned, there was no one. I could not sleep. I wanted to ask him so many questions, but the most important thing that I was thinking of was, what would he ask in return for all the things he would do for me? It can't be for free. I started to miss work and spend my time talking to that jinn and reading the book, and I started to get lazy and sleep a lot until I got fired from my job, and the first thing I asked from the jinn was, "I want money," and subhanallah, I became rich in only a few days. My bank account was filled and I felt so powerful. He obeyed me in everything I asked and wanted. I can't explain to you how they work because you won't believe it. I got used to talk to him. It has become a routine. With time I noticed that I changed a lot. I started to sleep most of the time and I became lazy in performing salah and other acts of worship. It never happened to me before, and I even became more angry and bad-mannered that my parents started to notice as well. I became isolated as well. I stopped contact with all my friends and had no social life anymore, and that was how the tables started to turn against me. The jinn started to be disobedient and refused to do anything I asked. The money started to decrease because I spent it all on stupid things, and this led me to the first question I asked myself: what would he ask in return? And indeed, he didn't do all the things he did for free. He started to ask me to do shirk things, and I got confused because I thought he was a Muslim. How stupid I was. And if I refused, he would hurt me and threaten to harm my family. He even made me stop praying Salah and asked me to do disgusting things I can't even tell you. I was lost, and I started to do things that scared my family. I noticed that the human food did not seem appetizing to me anymore. I craved mostly the bones of the meat and found myself eating only bones all the time, and when I did my research I discovered that the Prophet said that the food of the jinns is the bones of animals, and I was terrified. I also had terrible nightmares every night where I saw myself killing my father or hurting my mother. My life has turned into a nightmare in only a few weeks, and one night my mother refused to let me go inside the house. She said, "This morning you almost killed your father. You attacked him out of nowhere, and you attacked me. Tonight go to sleep at your brother's house. Something is wrong with you." I didn't know what she talked about because I don't remember attacking my parents at all. I was lost and scared. What was wrong with me? Did I really do these things? The only explanation is that the jinn possessed my body because I'm craving strange things, and I can even read the evil intentions of people and hear things in my head like someone talking to me, and I can't even bear to listen to the Quran. It burns me. I ran back to the masjid and searched for the man who gave me the book, but no sign of him at all. He disappeared, and the next days he didn't show up either. I took the book from my parents' house and started to search for a solution to get rid of the jinn, and the shock was when I found out in the last page that the only solution was to pass the book to someone else and make him read it, so the jinn transferred to him, and that's how I understood that the man tricked me. I was an easy prey, and I immediately went to make wudu and asked Allah for forgiveness, and I tried to pray. The jinn did everything to stop me, and the next day my parents brought a raki, and when he started reciting Quran I fell on the ground and lost consciousness. Hours later the raki woke me up and said that I was possessed by a married dangerous jinn, and I told him everything I did, and I told my parents too, and the raki said that some magicians look for praise. They trick people with the lie of a Muslim jinn, and sadly you fell in the trap, but you will be okay inshallah. I did more Ruqyah sessions, and alhamdulillah I got back to normal, and I found a good job, and I became more consistent in my acts of worship, alhamdulillah, the raki, and I got rid of the book, and this experience taught me to never approach that world ever again, and if you saw the scary creatures I saw, wallahi, you would never sleep at night. Wallahi, it's a mercy that Allah made them unseen. Rose. The end.